Trump's money man has surrendered himself to the cops. Um, and in the surrendering of himself to the cops, you're going to have some people who say, hey, this is a political prosecution. And you're going to have others who vehemently say, no, the dude is guilty. Guilty as sin. And because he's guilty as sin, he should go to jail. We should throw the book at him and everything, wash our hands with it, and we go on about our life. I don't think it's that simple. And it's definitely not that simple. I think people could have two responses at once, because I do have two responses at once. In one case, the very specific and the very overt, Letitia James and Lance, what is it? Vance, I forget the last name. It'll come to me in a moment. Wanted to go after Trump. And in going after Trump and looking into taxes and everything else, they say, okay, we have enough to go after his money man and indict his money man, Alan Weisselberg. Great, you indict his money man. Now, the money man is the guy who probably is closest to the organization, and they also indict Trump organization. Now, the lawyers for both basically say, our client didn't do it, our client is innocent. The catch is, and one thing that Alan Weisselberg have that these guys want is Trump. They want Trump. Now, the catch becomes, do they have enough on Weisselberg to get him to flip on Trump? And that it's not just enough on Weisselberg. It's also this notion that you got to convince that guy that his lot is better with you than his loyalties and everything else that was developed with Trump. So from Weisselberg's standpoint, he has a federal case against him. They are trying to put charges on him, and they are trying to prosecute him because the threat is larger than the effect itself, meaning because he is sitting in a situation of threat, and in the context of threat, you have all of these ideas in your head about what can happen to me. I could be in prison for years. I could be in prison for, X amount of time. And then you go into, okay, what can happen to me in prison, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Those are things that plague and tear at the individual because in some responses or some cases, those things can be entirely true. The case against Weisselberg, I don't believe for a moment is an end. I believe it's a means to an end. Now, the means to an end in this case, like I said before, is to get Trump. Why do they need to get Trump? Donald Trump has scared the bejesus out of the political system. And as such, I don't think Donald Trump is going to be one of those guys that is typically protected in the way that they are protected. Meaning, yes, Obama can start a war in Syria. And yes, George Bush can get 1 million people killed. No, those aren't things that people will be held accountable for or prosecuted for. Trump, on the other hand, scared the hell out of the political system, and he broke the rule in the political system that if you lose, you lose. If you win, you win. But if you lose, you go away. You don't turn around and say the political system is fraudulent. The system that got you in power, that has all of those other people in power, you've just tried to utterly and entirely destroy. And from the standpoint of Democrats who look at you as the end of all things, you don't need to tell Vance to go after Trump. You don't need to tell Letitia James to go after Trump. They just need to be Democrats, and they just need to be of a type of Democrat. And here's the catch. From the standpoint of whether Trump committed a crime or whether Weisselberg committed a crime, they probably did. They probably did. But probably so did the other people who are in New York who was in that particular business, especially from the standpoint of real estate. Meaning, you have a lot of people in New York, real estate developers, and dare I say, let's say 70%, maybe have run afoul of this particular crime, of this particular real estate law, of either the tax fraud or whatever else they're trying to get them on. And this very specific case, just so I'm clear, Weisselberg 73 is due to be arraigned this afternoon on grand jury indictment charging him and Trump's namesake organization with tax crimes related to fringe benefits given to employees like the use of apartments, cars, schools, tuition. People familiar with the matter told the Associated Press. Now, Vance, district attorney in Manhattan, who's decided or who's doing this, is after Trump. As a Democrat, they want Trump's husk on their wall saying, I got him. What Vance knows, what I know, what probably Letitia James knows, is doing business in New York and being able to be successful at it, especially from the standpoint of real estate, probably does entail cheating and fraud, meaning the fraud part is probably normal in perpetuation of your business in New York in real estate. As the fraud part is normal, it's one of those things that may just typically get overlooked. We're not entirely going to pay attention to this because we get that this is something that is par for the course. By the same token, that also means that he is guilty. I hope you understand both are true. It can entirely be selective justice in the way that they're deciding to prosecute this case. We have all of these people, 1,000 of them are guilty. We're going to look at this guy, that guy. That guy stuck his head up. That guy just so happens to be the previous president of the United States. And that guy is threatening to run again. Thing is, can't run again if you're in a prison cell. If you're in a cage, you're not running for office. If we could put him in a cage, we know as a flat fact, he can't run for office. Yes, it's going to do amazing things for us politically to have this husk on our wall. Yes, we're doing this for America. Yes, we're doing this because he broke the law. All of those things just so happen to be wrapped in that box that is called Donald Trump. If that means that you get Weisselberg, talk, if you do that, then that's what you do. And right now, Weisselberg is the guy who they're looking at that allows them to crawl over to get Trump. If your name is Donald Trump today, you know that whether or not you end up in a jail cage in some level is dependent upon a 73-year-old money guy that you've had for decades. The money guy knows where the bodies are buried, I guarantee you. They know that the money guy knows where the bodies are buried. And the catch, and the challenge in this case for the DAs, get that guy to talk. And the threat for Donald Trump is if they can get that guy to talk. Fascinating stuff. Like I said, it's not just one thing. It's not this individual specific thing of, okay, they're railroading him. That could be true. And you could have issue, which I do, with using the political device or using the device that we have as, let's say, the legal instrument for this kind of selective judgment. But let's just be clear. He probably is guilty, which is why Donald Trump, who's sitting somewhere today, should be that much uneasy by the developments that just took place. Alan Weisselberg has surrendered himself. CFO, Alan Weisselberg. The Trump organization has just been indicted. Alan Weisselberg with him. Weisselberg has been with Trump for decades as his money guy. And yeah, the money guy that's handled all sorts of stuff is now going to have pressure of the state applied to him to get him to flip and talk about the person who they want. Number 45, Donald J. Trump. Like, share, subscribe.